Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm Keith Downey, your host. And today we have Rebecca Anderson joining us from sacredheartradio.org to discuss a pressing issue that's stirring debate within Washington State and really the broader Catholic community. I don't know if you've seen it, but recently legislation has been proposed that seeks to mandate priests to break the seal of the confessional. And Rebecca is here to join us to kind of help shed some light on this matter. Good morning, Rebecca, and welcome back to the show.
Good morning. Well, you know what? There's always a spiritual battle. I always say, you know, we're in this ministry, and you just go, well, all right. Why are we surprised? But anyway,
that's so true.
Yeah, thanks. I actually had to do some. They can't. Okay, that's the answer.
Yeah,
you can't
there
force. The state cannot force. The state cannot force priests to break the seal. But they're trying, and Washington State is just the next of at least 6 others that have allowed it. So
Wow.
I did some research on it. It is shocking, but you throw around that word inviolable. That's a big word, and it means it cannot happen. You know, but they're trying, and like anything, they try and they try and try. So looking at this, I feel like I kind of was doing this test for an exam on seal of confession, but Washington State is there have been states that are allowing that, and oddly enough, except for Texas does allow it, but Texas also does not allow the protection of attorney-client privilege. All the other ones do. So priests have to break the seal, but attorneys do not have to share what their clients say. So
That's weird.
It's not measuring up. So
yeah, that doesn't add up. For those out there that are listening, maybe they're not Catholic, or maybe they're just maybe not well catechized, and they're like, well, what's the big deal about this? You know, breaking the seal of the confessional. Why is it, in your own words, why do you think it's so important for us as Catholics and priests to really keep the seal of confession?
Because we need to truly know the mercy of God and be willing to approach that fount of mercy through the confessional, knowing that those sins are confidential. And the priest, you know, and people don't understand the Catholic faith. The priest isn't the priest. It's not Father Joe that you're confessing to in that confession. Confessional, it's Christ. It is Christ. It is Christ in personae. And that is something non-Catholic. And I think some Catholics don't know either. You know, but you need that. We need that. And last year I actually testified. So this is the 3rd year in a row that this has come through Washington State by the same senator. She actually has been very vocal in that she was sexually molested as a child, not by a priest, but she has her own trauma coming into this. And this is the 3rd year. And last year I did testify. And my testimony, quite frankly, was I'm a sinner. I don't want my sins to be public. When will my sins be on the list? You know, and we all need that. And I think also in wrapping my head around this, Keith, it was like, why is this happening? Why? You know, it's because truly man doubts the merciful forgiveness of God. Right?
Yeah.
That we doubt and the hardness of man. And we still think man needs to make the world perfect or rectify these wrongs. And that's where I kind of landed, is like, why is this even happening? You know, it's like, because man doubts the mercy of God.
Wow. So what exactly does this proposed legislation in Washington State entail? Like, why are they? You mentioned the senator. She has some history and abuse. Is that essentially what they're expressing?
Actually, it's under the guise of protecting children. It's under the guise of protecting children. If we need to protect children at all costs, and if you really look at it pragmatically, and again, that's why I go back to the core of man doubting the merciful forgiveness of God, is because if you look statistically at abuse, and yes, the Catholic Church in its past recently has not done a good job, but we've put great things in place now to do that. I don't know about you, if you work in your parish or anyone listening, you have what we have safe environment. You have to go through this background check. You have to sit in on these videos. You know, we are doing what we can. We can't get to zero, but we can do what we can. And so it's under the guise of protecting children. But then again, we have a very pro-abortion state. So some children are worth, you know, it comes back to man not trusting the merciful forgiveness of God.
Right. We want to protect children, but after they're born, not before they're born. That's what it sounds like. That's just crazy. So I'm curious to know what the community there, the Catholic community there in Washington, what's been the response like to this proposed law?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have an archdiocese, and we have two other dioceses. Yakima's a diocese, Spokane's a diocese, Seattle's the archdiocese. The Diocese of Spokane, Bishop Daley, was very, very forthcoming with his letter. It actually has made a lot of the Catholic news and saying, we understand the zero tolerance for child abuse. We've put these metrics in place, but my priests will not break the seal. They will not break the seal. They will go to jail. They will not break the seal. Hard stop. And so that's been that. I know that Bishop Schuster, who's in the Archdiocese of Seattle, he testified in the Senate bill. And the bills are Senate Bill 5375 and House Bill 1211. And on sacredheartradio.org, we have those posted on our homepage. And actually, it was interesting. I just read this morning to make sure they were still there. So in a Senate hearing or a House hearing, you don't have to tell the truth. You don't swear to tell the truth. You don't. And so even if you look at the cons and the pros, especially the pros for this, you can lie. In fact, on our homepage, which I was unaware of, in the testimony of the Senate bill, someone alluded to the fact that there is an active investigation in Washington State about child abuse. So they're lying about this. There is no. So again, it goes back to man not believing and trusting and really knowing the true merciful forgiveness of God, right? And quite honestly, I don't know, might be news to some people, but the church is not liked, the church is hated, I mean, and it's real. But again, in looking at this, so sacredheartradio.org, we are doing what we can. We're encouraging. Both those bills have made it through the committees. So now we're just waiting for them to come out of appropriation and I think a rules committee. And then, they could be introduced on the floor. In Washington State, we have every other year is a long session. We're in a long session. So they have 105 days, which April 27th is our last day. So while the rest of the country has got this sort of reprieve and some stuff that's going on federally,
sure,
you are seeing, and I'm telling you that, on the ground in blue state, I don't know what colors, they're doubling down. We're suing the government. We're fighting the federal government. So, but prayer, fasting. And so what do we do? What do we do as Catholics here? We pray and fast. We know there might be some law stuff. We have to educate our people or educate people that If you know some Catholics that don't really understand the faith, explain it to them. Share how you have received the graces of God's forgiveness in the confessional. You have, Keith. I'm sure I have. I go in with my sins. I think, that weightedness. I go in and then it's just like light as a feather. Right? So beautiful, so touching, so loving. That's the mercy that we want everyone to have access to. And if we're going to start putting these, or people think these conditions, and quite honestly, priests don't know who comes in.
Right.
Then they're going to have to be policing. I mean, we just don't, because again, it's man not thinking that, God really can forgive. And it's up to God to forgive. This is a soul thing. Right. This isn't a crime thing. So anyway.
No. Well, I mean, it's just people are already hesitant about going to confession. Really, there's a lot of people that are like, well, I don't want the priest to think this or that. And then if you take the seal of the confessional away, then people aren't wanting to speak freely or honestly. And so that would just jumble everything up. It would just not be good for anybody involved, especially the priests. I mean, all priests do confession like that. They're the ones initiating the sacrament of confession. If this passes, like, are they just going to be all arrested? Like, what do you think would happen if this passes?
Well, okay, let's look. There are 6 other states that have something like this on the books. Okay. And how many court cases have you heard? How many arrests have you heard? You haven't. I was doing some research, and there was a case in Louisiana, and the priest actually went to court, and he risked jail, and he was found not guilty. Right. He should have, or he was prompted to. It took 8 years for it to go through. But at the end, the Louisiana Supreme Court said, the seal of confession must stand. So, maybe we're working our way towards, a Supreme Court case if enough of these states are doing this.
Huh. Interesting. I was unaware that there is other states that have this in place already. But like you said, there's been nothing.
Some degree of it.
Some degree of it.
No, I say just some degree of it. Yeah. And, really, honestly, I was thinking a lot about this. Like, you don't really know until it impacts you directly.
Yeah.
Right? How often in our lives, like, well, I don't really care about that law. I don't really care about that. Oh, it impacts me. Or when you go to build your house or fix your house. Oh, I didn't know about the city regulations until I filed that permit. What? I mean, we got to do this and this, and it cost me this. That's just our nature, right? If it's not in your little habit trail, you kind of go, oh, it doesn't bother me, And it's not a bad thing. It's just, you look at what's in front of you. And so this continues to be in front of us in Washington. And again, this is the third year, right? And again, that's how the dark side wears us down.
That's so true. Wow. Well, thank you so much for bringing this to light to, I know many of people may not even have heard about this. So thank you so much, Rebecca. If you're looking for more information out there, make sure to go to sacredheartradio.org. I believe it's on the front page. It's there, just ready to educate. So thanks again, Rebecca, for joining us. And that is it for Morning Joy, where truth matters, this Tuesday edition. Now, of course, there's a couple paths you can take right now, especially if you're listening on the radio, and the Holy Mass is coming up next. Please pray for us if that's what you're staying for. We will continue to pray for you and your intentions, and also pray for Washington State. But if you are going to be joining us in the after show, we're about to transition on over to that, which is great. It's all on social media only, so we're off the radio waves and on social media, where we can debrief from the show, and best of all, just hang out with you. It's all interactive. And but otherwise, if you aren't able to join us, we'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern, here on Morning Joy, where truth matters. We'll see you.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.